everyone. Welcome into another edition of To The Point podcast. You guys all had a great weekend. What a weekend it was in the world of sports. Lots happening, and we're going to dive into all of it today, including a great comeback in tennis, interesting hockey storylines, and of course, the news and notes from around the NFL. Just like to say thank you guys for all the continued support. Give us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Really does help boost the platform. And you can find the video version of the podcast every day, YouTube, and on Facebook. So that's where you can find us there. Now, I mentioned last week there's some things happening here to the point, some exciting things, hopefully on the horizon. We're about a month out from where this announcement's going to come. Obviously, it's January 31st today. So March 1st, that's the plan, to have a month to set up some new digs. And so there's a little spoiler, but I think it's going to be exciting. There's some other things that are going to happen that we'll announce along the way, but continue to follow along, follow our social channels, and you'll find out soon enough what we are going to do, what I'm going to do with the podcast moving forward, and hopefully it can be more interactive with all of you, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So keep your eyes and ears tuned for the news forthcoming. This weekend was about many things, but comebacks was definitely a key theme of this weekend. A 35-year-old Spaniard veteran in the world of tennis is 2 sets down to one of the best hard court players in the game of tennis right now. And Rafael Nadal storms all the way back, 5-all in the 5th, gets a break to win his 21st Grand Slam title, breaking the record of himself, Roger Federer, and Novak Djokovic. But it didn't stop there. You have the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, both stormed back Saturday night from multiple goal deficits to win games, which is more and more important because right now you need wins to stay tight in that division. The Atlanta Hawks come from 12 down, score 28 points in the fourth quarter to defeat the Lakers and drop the old man Lakers team, as Charles Barkley might call them, to 3 games under 500 and sitting 9th in the weak Western Conference. And comebacks didn't stop there. But there are certain games, there are certain players where you just need to play, where you just need somebody to step up and be the man. And, to start the weekend, I'm sure you'd say if you had a fantasy draft, you pick Patrick Mahomes number 1 when it comes to your quarterback selection. And from there, I think it's an interesting toss-up. Do you take Joe Burrow 2nd? Do you take Matthew Stafford 3rd? Clearly, you'd take Jimmy Garoppolo 4th. There's probably many people that would have taken Jimmy Garoppolo in the bottom 3 of all the quarterbacks when the postseason started, including the likes of Jalen Hurts and Ryan Tannehill on the quarterbacks that have fallen thus far. But certain players make big plays. And I look at this weekend, and it was not a crowning achievement, but achievement nonetheless from 2 guys that have really been looked over, that have been criticized, that have been thought of in, well, he'll never get there, or he can't beat Mahomes, or, well, yeah, okay, he was in Detroit, but still he doesn't win big games. And Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford debunked these myths, these quandaries this weekend, where you have the Cincinnati Bengals rally against the Kansas City Chiefs to win in overtime, and you have the Los Angeles Rams down 10 points going into the fourth quarter, and they rally to get the win. It was a day of comebacks. It was a day of great performances. But you got to credit the people who get the most credit, because Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford made clutch plays when they had to yesterday. The Bengals don't win the game if Joe Burrow doesn't scramble for 2 third-down conversions on his last drive of the game. Just doesn't happen to put the Bengals up 3. He scrambles twice, gets out of Chris Jones. You'd think he's down for a sack, but Burrow pulled a Big Ben Roethlisberger, who's heading into the Hall of Fame, and escapes the pocket and picks up yardage. Matthew Stafford on a third down late in the fourth quarter last night, 3rd and 8, scrambles and picks up 14. Now, there were big throws. Matthew Stafford throwing a pair of touchdowns to Cooper Kupp. Joe Burrow finding T. Higgins throughout the day. Jamar Chase catching a touchdown in the back of the end zone. But sometimes it's just key situations where you make the big play and your opponent doesn't. In the first half of the Kansas City-Cincinnati game, Patrick Mahomes played as good a football as you possibly can play. His first 3 drives all resulted in touchdowns. Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 drives, 21-3 lead. Cincinnati goes and scores a touchdown, but leaves a $1.50 or so $1.11 on the clock for Kansas City. And you think, well, we saw what they did last week in 13 seconds. They're going to go and score a touchdown, be up 28-10, and they get the ball to start the second half. It's over. 28-10, they get the ball back, they get points. To me, the game's over. I love Joe Burrow. I have much respect for that Cincinnati defense. But game's also about momentum. I don't believe in game-to-game momentum, because Kansas City's coming off beating the Bills in dramatic fashion. Cincinnati's coming off beating Tennessee in a walk-off field goal. Both these teams are coming in with momentum. This is not about what you come in with. It's what you do in the game. Players making plays. And of course, Kansas City drives down the field. Play after play. Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman on a crosser, Travis Kelce, the usual suspects. But you get down, it's 3rd and goal, 5 seconds after they run the ball on 2nd down and stop. Now, I'm fine with having another play with 5 seconds, but as a quarterback and receiver, but this is on the quarterback. You have the football, and you're not. Kansas City ran the ball really effectively yesterday, which is something they rarely do. Not because they're not a good running football team, but because Andy Reid likes to throw the football. He did it in Philly. He's done it his entire career. And that's fine. You have one play. You have to throw the football because they have no timeouts. You run the football, they get a stop, clock ticks, half's over. However, this is about quarterback sense. This is on IQ and situational awareness. Patrick Mahomes gets the football. There's no play. There's none in the end zone. Everybody's covered. Great coverage by Cincinnati. That continued into the second half. Throw the football away. Stop the clock with a second. You kick a field goal. 24-10 at the half. 4 drives. 24 points. That's pretty damn good. That's pretty efficient football. But instead, he throws a backwards pass to Tyreek Hill. And Tyreek Hill cannot make guys miss. This isn't his fault. It's outside of the end zone. He has to make people miss, and he doesn't. They're stuck at the 2. And this is where the downward spiral for Patrick Mahomes began. Because in that first half, it was vintage Patrick Mahomes. It was, maybe this guy's going to be greater than Tom Brady. All the different sayings you hear about this guy. Seeing him run the football, scramble, make incredible, beat the pocket, and that pass he threw to Travis Kelce for a touchdown where he evaded Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard in the same play. Fantastic. And it worked there. But making a play here, coming up big, getting a stop, it changed the momentum of the game. And what happens in the second half? Well, you think, well, KC gets the ball. That's pretty darn good. But Kansas City, the rest of the game, had 7 drives. They had 3 points. 4 of those 7 drives were 3 and outs, including the overtime drive. But making a play in that moment, it shifted the game. Because Cincinnati's offense didn't come out the second half firing on all cylinders. L'Jarius Sneed has an interception. But it didn't matter because that defense had confidence. They were flying all over the football, and Mahomes didn't. And I credit Cincinnati's defense. I look at guys like Jesse Bates Jr. III, Mike Hilton, B.J. Hill, who's a defensive end who got an interception of Mahomes, the first of 2 on the day. Clearly Von Bell, who gets the game-winning interception. But this is on Patrick Mahomes. I heard after the game, listening to Fox briefly, and Michael Strahan, I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure women think he's a good-looking guy. Can't disagree. He's a handsome guy. But what bothers me about the coverage is, well, Patrick Mahomes, such a nice kid. Okay, he could be a great person. Sure he is. And when Tom Brady sticks it up, well, it's the GOAT, and you can't. Well, Patrick Mahomes lost in the game yesterday. Point and the period. Kansas City's defense, did they play great in the second half? No. But 21-10. Mahomes throws an interception. They score on a short field. That's 21-17. And from there, it's just a disaster. I look at, and it's just Mahomes' stupid football. That's how I look at this. The last drive of the game, I don't know what the hell he's doing. Second down, he's scrambling, and then he rushes into the pocket where everybody is congested. His O-lineman, the D-line, he has nowhere to go. So then you're forced to take a timeout. Stupid, throw the ball away. How many times yesterday was he scrambling where throw the ball into the crowd? It's an incompletion, but take the bad stat. Who gives a shit? Throw the ball away. No, the arrogance of this guy. No, I'm just going to hold on to it. I can beat them. No, you can't. Because Trey Hendrickson, who was signed in the offseason from New Orleans, who's a flat-out stud in 3 playoff games, has 5.5 sacks, including 2 yesterday. Sam Hubbard is no slouch. The Cincy O-line might be chopped liver. Their D-line isn't, and their defense isn't. They play with pride. They play hard. And then he fumbles on 3rd down, and they're lucky the game wasn't over then. Bucker kicks a game-tying field goal. But you saw in the first half, Tyreek Hill got whatever he wanted. And they took that away. They started they dropped this, they were playing 2-eye safety, but they dropped their safety closer into coverage, and Tyreek Hill was taken away. And you saw Mecole Hardman, who's really their number 3 receiver behind Kelsey and Hill. He started to get frustrated because he's saying, I'm open. And I can only, the defense, could they have made plays? Yes. But on Cincinnati's last drive, they held them to a field goal. Kansas City had the opportunity to win the football. They were inside the 5. And yes, you're playing for with over a minute. Yes, you're playing for the points. But it wasn't a designed QB run. This wasn't where, okay, I'm Josh Allen, I'm 6'5", I'm plowing through these. That's not how Mahomes runs. Every time he runs with the football, it's a scramble. He didn't look to throw the ball on either, in my humble opinion. It was a stupid decision. And in overtime, all 3 of his passes, which were 3 and out, could have been intercepted. The first ball to Edwards-Helaire, over his head, but there's a defender real close, just missed. Second pass, behind DeMarcus Robinson, through the hands of Eli Apple. And then the next play, he throws it to Tyreek, 3rd and 10. You have a safety, Jesse Bates, the safety, help over the top. It's in Tyreek Hill's hands, but Bates gets a hand in there. Von Bill intercepts, and the game's over. Cincinnati goes down the field. Joe Mixon had over 30 yards of rushing on the drive. He had a great day, power running. And eventually they get to the middle of the field. Evan McPherson, who's just a stud, hits a 31-yard walk-off field goal. His second straight walk-off field goal for the Bengals. He's a rookie. He's 12 for 12 in the postseason. Crazy. And I'm going to give Cincinnati credit. I'm going to change the conversation. But Mahomes is the boy genius. Mahomes is the greatest quarterback. Well, he was of the 4 starters yesterday, he was the worst quarterback to me. If I look at the complete game, did Jimmy Garoppolo play great in the 4th quarter? No, but through 3, he played his best game of the postseason. Mahomes had a great quarter and 13 minutes. He had a great 28-minute span. And then he gets to that point where you have to make it at the goal line. What are you going to do? And he bungled it. That's it. And I'm sure if Andy Reid was in front of a mic and he didn't have to criticize his team, he would say what the late Dennis Green said. The former Bears coach said, we left them off the hook. We are who we thought they were. Because Cincinnati shouldn't have won this game. Did they make adjustments? Yes, I pointed them out. But if you have the best quarterback, which they do, you're up 11 at half. You win that game. You're at home. You get the ball to start the second half. And this wasn't about the offensive line yesterday, the Kansas City. That was last year, 100%. In the Super Bowl, he ran for his life because that offensive line couldn't block me. Yesterday, he held the ball too damn long, too damn often, and it caught up with him because you have good players on the other side. And now he's been to 4 straight AFC Championship games. He's 2-2. Been to 2 Super Bowls, 1-1. But as we look at it, Cincinnati is going to the Super Bowl. The franchise's first trip to the Super Bowl since 1988, losing to Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers twice in a 2-year span. But what this really tells me is, for really a decade, because there's a long span where the Patriots weren't winning anything, and Brady went, close to a decade without winning a Super Bowl. I don't see this era being dominated by one team or one quarterback. And the thought that Kansas City is the superpower is just simply not true. Yes, they've been to 4 straight AFC Championship games, but like I just said, they've only been to 2 Super Bowls. The 90s Bills went to 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost them all, but they went to 4 straight. They were penciled in. Kansas City can't be penciled in. Do I expect them to have a formidable roster next year and compete for the playoffs and likely win the AFC West? Yes. But they're not a dynasty. They're a good team. They're not a great team. Because if you have that quarterback, if you have the best tight end in the league, if you have one of the most special wide receivers, you have you have Andy Reid, a great head coach, you close that game. You just do. And to me, that second half was Patrick Mahomes through the middle stage of the season where he was just too cute. Make simple plays. Stay in the pocket, throw the football. Don't start running before the play is developed. And I saw that far too often. Now, you can have a bad game, but when you're in the playoffs, when you're in an AFC Championship game, it's going to be illuminated. It's going to be talked about. Maybe not by the rest of the media, but by me. Because if this was like Jimmy Garoppolo, I haven't listened to any shows yet today. I don't listen to anything prior to when I do a podcast because I like to keep my thoughts to myself without hearing any other opinions on it. But I'm sure he's getting crushed today because, it's Jimmy Garoppolo and he stinks. And is he a great quarterback? No, but we knew that before. So expecting a pile of shit to be a T-bone steak is idiocy. It's fallacy. Well, Patrick Mahomes is supposed to be, for me, a great little meal. It's supposed to be goulash, hamburger and macaroni, right onto the plate. But instead, I was served Brussels sprouts. I don't want that. And to me, to not point out that he didn't play well, it just makes no sense. Because yes, he's the boy, he's the wonderkind, and he's the next Tom Brady, yada. Well, is he? Brady never lost a game, never choked away a game like that in the AFC Championship game, I'll tell you that. But Patrick Mahomes is special. He'll be back. He's a great talent. But for yesterday, this is 100% on him. And Andy Reid, in a sense, because rein him in. Why are you scrambling before the play is developed? You have great attract team receivers. Stop looking to run in every play and forcing your line to block for 10, 12 seconds because eventually you're playing with fire, especially in the close game. How about try to score a touchdown, win the game? You didn't. And that brings us to Cincinnati. I give most credit to their defense because in the red zone, in the playoffs so far, the Cincinnati offense is converting at a 35% clip. That's not good. Really not good. Wasn't great again yesterday. But against Tennessee, the defense played hard. They showed up. Trey Henderson, like I mentioned off the top, 5.5 sacks in 3 games. Dude's a stud. What an offseason signing. Mike Hilton coming over from Pittsburgh. Great signing. But forever, Cincinnati, Carson Palmer, they took number 1 overall, was a good quarterback. No doubt about it. Heisman Trophy winner. But never changed life in Cincinnati. Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, got them to the playoffs 5 times, but they never won a playoff game. And then they've gone through different quarterbacks. But then you get to Joe Burrow. Number 1 overall pick. They completely neglect him last season. He only gets to play 8 games, shatters his ACL, MCL, and LCL. Somehow he's back week 1, looks a little timid in the pocket, but sometimes it's about being made of the right stuff. This guy got sacked 9 times last week. And to the credit of the offensive line, he only got sacked once yesterday. However, I do give Joe a ton of credit and Zach Taylor, the head coach / offensive coordinator, because they had so many routes that were stick, which is basically you run 5-6 yards, you stop. And that's where you sit there. You put the ball on them It's a little stick route because he needed to have people available. He checked it to Samaje Perine, to Joe Mixon, or T. Higgins would just run a slant where T. Higgins is just bigger and stronger than Rashad Fenton or L'Jarius Sneed. It didn't matter. T. Higgins is that dude. But like I mentioned, the scramble plays, those were different than Mahomes because it's your 3rd and 8, 3rd and long, pockets collapsing. You have to go for it. You got to try to get a first down. Mahomes is on first down looking to, run halfway across the field. Burrow, I would say when it comes to pocket awareness and situational awareness in the game, Burrow is already a smarter quarterback than Patrick Mahomes because Burrow knows the situation. He knows what the score is, what he has to do, the down, the sticks, things like that. Or Mahomes, it's, I can try this trick play here because I'm Patrick Mahomes. Burrow is, I'm not going to do anything flashy. I'm going to get the first down, move the chain so I can get my team closer to winning this game. And, Jamar Chase caught a touchdown. They took him away early in the game. He had 2 catches for 8 yards in the first half, but he got available. T. Higgins had a big day. They lose CJ Uzomah, who's a great tight end. Doesn't look good for him. I think he tore his Achilles. I haven't heard anything yet. If we hear anything on this podcast, I'll let y'all know. But, Jamar Chase had 6 for 54. Not exactly a stud of a day. T. Higgins had 6 for $103. Perine had a 41-yard touchdown. They did what they had to do. Joe Mixon ran 21 times for 88 yards. Burrow had 5 for 25. He scrambled a bunch. He didn't have design runs, but he scrambled when he had to get those key first downs. And, Cincinnati's been looked at as this feel-good story the entire playoffs. And now they're a game away from the Super Bowl. And it just seems like a team that's a team of destiny. They had 4 wins last season. 4. I remember when Zach Taylor was hired, I was skeptical because he was another McVay, Shanahan. Well, yeah, he's in that coaching tree. But to the credit of that tree, it's bearing great fruit because you have Shanahan, who was in the NFC Championship game yesterday. McVay, of course, who's heading to his 2nd Super Bowl as a head coach. And then Zach Taylor, who's also in that mix. You also have Matt LaFleur out there in Green Bay. So a lot of success with this group of coaches. And, credit to Taylor, to Burrow, to this team. Joe Mixon was a running back that had first-round talent, but he had some troubles in school. And, he dropped to Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is obviously a lock. You take him number 1. Jamar Chase, they're saying, well, do they take Penei Sewell out of Oregon? And their offensive line still stinks. They're going to have to address it. But with this offensive line the way it is, which is not great, they give up the most sacks in the NFL in the regular season. They've given up the most sacks in the postseason of any team. And yet they're 1 win away. They just fight. This team doesn't give up. And it's also could be an interesting day for Joe Burrow. He's going to compete in his first Super Bowl. And something to remember is, we think Joe Burrow is great. We know Patrick Mahomes is great. Well, Mahomes has already been to 2. That's a big achievement. Brett Favre only was in 2 Super Bowls. See, Ben Roethlisberger was in 3. Aaron Rodgers has competed in 1. Dan Marino only got to 1. It's hard to win them. It's hard to get to them. Peyton Manning was in 4, winning 2. But to get to 1 is a big achievement. But, does Burrow ever get back? Obviously, I love Joe Burrow. I think the kid's a stud, but it's no guarantee that he's back in a Super Bowl, that a team in Cincinnati will continue to find the success. But could you find it for this season? That's the big question. And if Cincinnati wins the Super Bowl, Joe Burrow will be the first player to win the Heisman Trophy, win the national championship, and win the Super Bowl. That's if they win in 13 days. That would be a pretty cool achievement. A lot have done the Heisman and Super Bowl, but the three of them, he wins a national title at LSU while winning a Heisman, going undefeated, and now he gets to a Super Bowl here. Now, he would do all of this in a 3-year span, which is just crazy to think about. But this team can't be overlooked. They're one game away, like I just said. They play well on defense. The first half, they were getting completely bull rushed, but they made adjustments. They found ways to improve. They have a great quarterback, an elite wide receiver, and T. Higgins is no slouch. A mediocre offensive line. But they make plays when they have to. And that brings us to their opponent. And the Cincinnati Bengals will obviously be playing the Los Angeles Rams, who escaped with a victory yesterday at home, defeating the 49ers for the first time in 6 attempts, including 2 losses this season and a Week 18 17-point comeback from the 49ers. But the Rams are another interesting team because on paper, the Rams should have ran the 49ers off the field. Who's not taking Matthew Stafford over Jimmy Garoppolo? You know, Cooper Kupp, you likely take him over anybody in the receivers. I would take Debo over Cooper Kupp personally. I think he's more valuable. But Cooper Kupp, he's likely going to win Offensive Player of the Year, won the Triple Crown for receivers this year. He's no slouch. Running backs, Elijah Mitchell's a 6th-round pick. Cam Akers. Most are taking Cam Akers. Offensive line, I think that's a closer test. But, Trent Williams, Andrew Whitworth, they're both great left tackles. Defensively, as good as Nick Bosa is, and the kid's a stud, Aaron Donald just might be the best player in football. You're going to take 99. Von Miller, if I compare Eric Armstead, you're likely going to take Vaughn because Vaughn has won Super Bowl MVP. He's playing really well. So all those factors. Maybe the only position you wouldn't is kicker with Robbie Gould, who's never missed a field goal attempt in his career in the playoffs. But yesterday's game, Stafford make big plays. One thing I loved about the Rams yesterday, I think it really helped them win, is how long their drives were. The first touchdown drive for the Rams was 8.5 minutes. And it chewed clock. It wore that defense out. You had Fred Warner flying across the field, and Mccowan Williams, and Jimmy Ward, and Jaquiski Tartt. But those tough plays, it tires out a defense. And it didn't help that the next drive, it was 3 plays. Jimmy Garoppolo over the middle to Ayuk. They rushed the ball with Mitchell for 9. And then he throws the ball to Deebo Samuel on a screen pass. And this was one of the most impressive touchdowns I've seen. Great lead blockers in front, completely cleaning up the area. But he's got to break a tackle. He's got a man on his heels, and he just battles his way to the end zone. And this game was a war because there were some hits. Deebo, Nick Scott over the middle, loved the hit. Completely clean, right in the chest, but it took the wind out of him. It was a great hit. Jimmy Ward threw a cheap shot at OBJ late. That was completely uncalled for. But this was a game in the trenches. Deebo Samuel might be an offensive player, but he runs over defensive players. He's not easy to bring down. Big Trent Williams is as mean as it gets at left tackle. He's vicious. He'll take you out. He's running in motion. If you look at this game, Stafford throws an interception in the end zone, which hurt. Jimmy Ward picks up the pick. But through 3 quarters, Jimmy Garoppolo was playing his best game of the postseason by far, which wasn't a high bar. He had played relatively poor in the first 2 postseason games, but the team picked them up. They escaped with victories in Dallas and at Lambeau Field. But a big reason why the 49ers were leading and in the game, I look at Sean McVay. He coached that game as bad as you can coach a game yesterday. And let's start. Well, the first challenge is Stafford picked up the first down on a quarterback sneak. It was obvious on the TV screen. He did not. And to the credit of my mother, still doing well, maybe people upstairs are telling him to challenge it. Fair enough. I give him that. But you still have to be the one to throw the flag. It's you deciding. It's not unless your Les Snead is like, hey, throw that challenge flag there, boy, you're fired. He didn't get it. It was clearly obvious, and turnover on downs. Stupid. It was a fourth down. Why waste a timeout in that situation? Second, really stupid coaching decision, if you ask me. So on that, they drive the end of the first half. You have Stafford going down the field. He's making passes. He's going to Odell, and he's got two third down catches on the drive. So now they're 2nd and 1 after a pass play to Cooper Kupp. 2nd one, Sony Michel stuffed, no gain. 3rd one, Stafford bull rushed. It was a play action play. He has to throw it away, incomplete. So 4th and 1, of course, McVay's going for it. No problem with that. Love it. But Stafford quarterback sneaks, he stuffed. That's that play. This one, they're 4th down, right? And they're almost at midfield, a little past midfield. It's going to be a 54-yard field goal. And there's a little over a minute left on the clock. But the game's tied. And I'm saying, don't kick a field goal here. Matt Gay is not making a 54-yard field goal today. He looked sketchy, making extra points. Last week, he didn't have a great week in Tampa. Punt. Pin San Francisco deep. They don't have the offensive firepower to go down the field, 80-plus yards in a minute. Jimmy G's he doesn't have that in his arsenal. It's not going to happen. Debo can't do everything. But they kick a 54-yard field goal, and he misses by a foot. It's not even close. So San Francisco picks up the ball. They only have to move it 30 yards to get in the field goal range, which of course they do. And Robbie Gould doesn't miss field goals. This is the second mistake. You gave up 3 points for no reason. Punt. Play the field position game. Play to either that or go for it. If you're going to kick a 54-yard field goal with Matt Gay, who I don't trust, go for it on 4th down. Put it in Stafford's hands where he has Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr. I like that situation a hell of a lot more than I like Matt Gay kicking a field goal. So that was the second one where I said, that's just bad football. That's stupid. And then, second half, you get 49ers going a touchdown drive. It's Debo on a screen pass, big play. Juwan Jennings, this is just physical football. He's 2 yards short of the third down on a first down, a third down, but he fights. He just battles for it. And then back to the end zone, porn star Jimmy to George Kittle, 17-7. In the game, he's got 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. And just for reference, prior to this game, in 2 playoff games, Jimmy G had not thrown a touchdown pass. He had no touchdowns. They had 1 rushing touchdown against the Dallas Cowboys. That was it. So, but this is when the shift happened, 17-7. We see Aaron Donald talk to the defense. He fires them up. And I think the early drives of LA, where they went 8+ minutes and they were long and grueling, I think the 49ers defense started to fatigue because they battled hard. They made it difficult. Stafford makes some huge throws, 3rd and longs. I mean, that third down scramble, but he had 3rd and 13s. He threw it on the money. And picking up players when they're free, when good players, when they're available for cheap money, is what the good teams do. You sign players that you think can help you in big games. And Odell Beckham Jr. is a household name. He's talked about a lot. He's either loved or hated. Well, yesterday he was just flat out a superstar. He was. he had 9 catches for 113 yards. Now, I'm sure the people that don't like him will say, well, Cooper Kupp had 11 for $142 and 2 touchdowns. All true. But did you know yesterday, Odell Beckham, of his 9 catches, 5 of them were on third down. He was clutch. He took that big hit from Jimmy Ward, got up, got in his face, over the middle. They don't win that game yesterday without Odell Beckham Jr. because Higbee got hurt. He's their second best receiver. Van Jefferson, who would have been the number 2 without him because Robert Woods tore his ACL the week prior to Odell Beckham Jr. arriving, had 2 catches for 9 yards yesterday. The backup tight end, Kendall Blanton, had 5 for 57. He had a big day. But he was open because they didn't think he could, he'd be a threat in the passing game. But OBJ and Stafford have a connection. They trust each other. And, he deserves a ton of credit. He's come in. He's been a cog in the machine. He's not jealous of Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp had the 2 touchdowns yesterday. He made the big catches, and he was a huge factor in them winning. Because early in the fourth quarter when Kupp caught his second touchdown and the game was 17-14, yes, it was a big play. But again, OBJ was key on that drive. And this is, where McVay, again, a stupid challenge. He says, use check. The fullback got a run where they stuffed him on third down. So you get the ball back with a timeout. But his elbow was down. He challenges it. So he loses his last timeout. He's lucky that he didn't need it because it was another, 3 stupid coaching plays yesterday from Sean McVay. But games are, they get the 17-17, they tie it up with Matt Gay field goal. Sometimes games are won and lost with just one simple player. So on first down, 17-17, 6:49 to go. Jaquiski Tartt. Stafford throws a deep ball up and to Van Jefferson. He's in completely double covered. Tartt's got the football in his hands. Drops it. He tried to move with it before he had secured the catch. He catches that. I think San Francisco wins the game, but he dropped it. It was such an easy interception. He drops it. Instead, the Rams go on a long drive. He has big plays to Odell Beckham Jr. Again, he gets a big play and then Jimmy Ward hits him late, cheap headshot, another 15 yards. Hits Cooper Kupp on a crossing route, beautiful game-saving tackle at the 11. And eventually, Bosa gets his second sack of the game, Nick Bosa, and they're forced to settle for a field goal. Matt Gay puts it through. And, the stars of the game, you think, well, defense San Francisco, Fred Warner, who played as good as you can play yesterday. Nick Bosa, second overall pick. Yeah, he had 2 sacks. He played great, in my opinion. Eric Armstead was quiet. But Fred Warner and Nick Bosa came to play. That San Francisco defense came to play in total. They battled hard. But the whole day in LA, you didn't hear about Aaron Donald. The pass rush that might have put Tom Brady into retirement was nowhere to be seen. Garoppolo did not get sacked the entire day. With Von Miller, with Leonard Floyd, with Aaron Donald, with Gaines, Greg Gaines. But sometimes it's just about that one play. Second down, Garoppolo, first down, incomplete pass. Second down, it's a 2-minute drill, $150. They have one timeout to see if they can go tie the game or win it. He throws it to Mitchell. He's tackled for a loss. So they rush to the line. Aaron Donald playing on the edge. He comes through, gets his paws on Jimmy G. Jimmy G is going to go down for a sack. Porn star Jimmy lose at least 10 yards. It's going to be 4th down with the game on the line. They'll likely take a timeout. But trying to avoid the sack, he's done it well all game. Jimmy G played well. Fourth quarter was standing, which is the most important quarter, but he stepped up in the pocket. He avoided sacks. He got the ball out of his hands quickly. Like the Cincinnati offense, they knew they had to have check down guys, whether it was Debo, whether it was George Kittle, Elijah Mitchell. They had receivers ready in short, shallow routes because they knew that pass rush was elite for the Rams. Well, Jimmy G kind of sidearms the football, trying to get rid of it. And Trayvon Howard comes up with the ball, an interception. And with that, it sealed the Rams' victory. The largest comeback in NFC Championship game history, entering the fourth quarter, down 9 points. And the Rams will be the second straight season where they will host the Super Bowl. The Bucs did it last year. They won the game. The Rams will have the same opportunity this year. And, Aaron Donald talked about before the game, I've won 3 Defensive Player of the Years. I've been an All-Pro, Pro Bowls, everything. But, even me and Ben Murray talked about this on Thursday. It's about having that championship. Reggie White's got a championship. Troy Polamalu's got a championship. Lawrence Taylor has a title. It's not just about offensive players. It's about great defensive players. It changes your resume. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, they have titles. These great defensive players have the opportunity to do that too. And you look at a guy like Aaron Donald, who might go down as the greatest defensive player to ever play the game. It's so important to his legacy. It's vital for him to get a title on his mantle, on his resume. And, great game, 6 straight playoff game that was a 1 possession game, which is just crazy to think about, that we have another one of these, 1 possession games. But as we move forward here, you have to give credit to Matthew Stafford. He's going to his first Super Bowl. He's 3-0 in the postseason. I was 0-3 coming into this season. But the Rams are vastly different from Cincinnati. Cincinnati did not have the expectation of getting to the Super Bowl this year, if you ask them honestly. Now, I'm just sure they wanted to keep Joe Burrow healthy for an entire season. Well, this is where the Rams expected to be. So you give them credit, but at the same time, you look and say, you should be here. You went out and traded for Matthew Stafford. You departed from Jared Goff to get an upgraded quarterback. Check. You have the best defensive player in football. Check. You had the wide receiver who won the Triple Crown for most catches, yards, touchdowns, Cooper Kupp. Check. Von Miller. You traded for Von Miller, who isn't what he used to be, but he is a Super Bowl champion and a former Super Bowl MVP. Not a bad addition. Check. You have the best corner in football, in my opinion, in Jalen Ramsey. Yes, he dropped a pick in this game that would have sealed the game before Trayvon Howard sealed it. Nonetheless, he locks down receivers like nobody else. Check. Oh, and then why not just add more? You go and get Odell Beckham Jr. when Cleveland cuts him because he's tired of catching passes or seeing the ball underthrown or thrown over his head by Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. And you get one of the most talented receivers in the game of football, potentially in the history of the sport. Check. They should be here. They deserve credit because they had to beat Brady. That's impressive. They had to go through San Francisco, get past a team that they just couldn't seem to beat, and they get here. This team has 1 first-round pick in the next 4 years. They've gone all in. They've traded away their future, but it's all worth it if they win it in 13 days. If with a win, Andrew Whitworth, the 40-year-old left tackle, I'm sure is going to retire. I'm sure it'll be his last game regardless, win or loss. But he could go out with a win. Winning his only Super Bowl. And he played his first 10 plus years in the NFL for the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's going to be a complete first full circle moment for Andrew Whitworth. And the pressure of this game is different if you look at both teams. I think the Rams feel more of the pressure because Cincinnati is so young. They're in their second year of this new Joe Burrow era. Jamar Chase is a rookie. Matthew Stafford, he's in his mid-30s. He's still playing at a high level, with Tom Brady potentially retiring, the NFC, it should be Stafford's conference, especially if Aaron Rodgers departs for Denver, Vegas, wherever. They should be in a good spot. But he's not a spring chicken. Aaron Donald is still, I think, the best player in football, but how much longer is he going to be able to continue to play as well as he is? You still have Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, but, Odell Beckham Jr. has been balling out. He will be given a good contract, I believe. And maybe he'll want to stay in LA because he has a house there. He's got great chemistry with Stafford, seems to really love this team. But if he wants to depart for more money, I believe that'll be available to him because he's been a model citizen and he's played fantastic for the Rams over the course of this postseason. So, as we head into the game, the line is LA -4, which I did say, I thought that would be the line last night. A little bit more of a pick 'em. They're saying LA, they're going to obviously be the home team. And, oddly enough about this game, it is the AFC Super Bowl. So even though it's in LA, it doesn't really matter the way it goes. Like it just shifts every year. So this year it's the AFC is the home team. These teams are both number 4 seeds, so it wouldn't matter on winning records. I believe it would go to Cincinnati, but it's the AFC Super Bowl. So Cincinnati, because they're the home team, is going to get the Los Angeles Rams locker room, which is an interesting development because that's the home team locker room. So the Rams, as far as I read this morning, and there was an ESPN article that the Rams are going to have to go to the visitors' room at their own facility, meaning Cincinnati will be where Aaron Donald stalls there, everything during Super Bowl week, which is just so crazy. The Bucs didn't have to deal with that last year because it was the NFC Super Bowl. But I hope that's true because I'm sure the Rams will be like, well, Cincinnati, can we just have it just as a sign of respect? And I know how I would answer that because I'm petty. No, we'll take it. Go to the visitors' room. You hear all kinds of stories about sports, how the visitors' room sucks. Sometimes go in there, the heater's on, or there's no heat, and the stalls suck, and it's not well cleaned, and this and that. Anything to give the home team a psychological advantage. Well, maybe it'll rattle the Rams that they don't get to go to their locker room, that they have to go to the visitors' room. And maybe this can be settled. But if I'm Cincinnati, I put up a fuss. I don't let the Rams in there. This is it's the AFC Super Bowl. That's not our problem. And I just want this story to continue because that's good content. And if it could create some rivalry going into the game, that would be even funner. But the matchup should be good. I look at Cincinnati. They need to handle the game like they did last week, where they had checkdowns available. They're going to need that because as good as the KC pass rush is, which is pretty good, Chris Jones is great. Melvin Ingram is a very good player. LA's is better. Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Von Miller are going to be coming at you. You need to be prepared. Running backs ready to receive footballs. You got short, shallow routes. Tyler Boyd running crossers. That needs to happen. Obviously, Stafford throwing against this defense, the secondary for Cincinnati's. The secondary for Cincinnati is better than this secondary for San Francisco. Because I look at San Francisco's secondary is not that great. Emmanuel Mosley, Kwan Williams, those aren't great corners. Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tart are good safeties. They have good help over the middle. But it's more about D'Amico Ryans and the scheme he runs that makes it so fantastic and so hard to play against. Whereas the players aren't exactly that stellar. I look at Cincinnati. You got to love what you see from Mike Hilton. I think he's played fantastic so far in the playoffs. Eli Apple can be had, but he made some big plays down the stretch. They got obviously Logan Wilson in the middle, who at linebacker, who plays fantastic. He can drop into coverage as well. So I do think it's a tougher matchup for Stafford. I think obviously for the two wide receivers, Cooper Kupp has had a $183 and then a $142 in two playoff games in the last 2 weeks. Well, it's going to be hard to completely eliminate him. And what makes the Rams so difficult to play against is OBJ's playing this well. So, okay, you double Cooper Kupp, you're going to play solo against OBJ, and he's going to beat most corners. I'll be interested to see how they handle it. I would put Hilton on Kupp. You'd want help with the safety, of course, and I'd likely put Jimmy Ward, Eli Apple at corner. I like him as I don't like him as man coverage. I don't love that matchup with OBJ because he gambles too much and OBJ can burn you. So I would look at, they don't have a whole lot of options, but you need help back there for sure. But I do think the Cincinnati secondary is stronger than San Francisco's. The pass rush is very formidable as well. Trey Hendrickson, I mentioned his stats. Sam Hubbard's no slouch. DJ Reader had a massive game against Tennessee, was more quiet yesterday. But we're 13 days away from this game. I don't think it's the game the NFL wanted. I do think they wanted the Rams for sure. But they would have loved to see Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. But oddly enough, I think this is, in the long term, the better option for the National Football League when it comes to branding. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. People are going to watch it. I was under the assumption that stupid holiday in Canada, Family Day, was the day after the Super Bowl. I was incorrect. It's the week later. If Trudeau wanted to do anything and make some people happy, maybe move up that holiday, the Monday after the Super Bowl, make that Family Day, because I don't know how many people spend Family Day with their family anyway. But nevertheless, we're 13 days away. We'll talk about it a ton as we get closer to the game. We'll talk about matchups, different storylines throughout the week. But there's more NFL stories. These games are fantastic. But, Saturday afternoon, I'm sitting there watching, in the midst of watching 6+ hours of golf. And, it comes up on my phone, Tom Brady, Adam Schefter, and Jeff Darlington of the Mothership are reporting that Tom Brady is retiring. And I go to Twitter, it's just a flurry of players saying, thank you, Tom. Mahomes tweeted out, the GOAT pitcher. And, people just saying, what a career. You're awesome. Thank you, Tom. Everything and you could think of. But then it's about a couple hours later, and Tom Brady's agent comes out and he said Tom has not made a decision on his future. Bruce Arians said, no, Tom hasn't talked to us about retirement. This isn't true. And then Tom Edward Patrick Brady Sr. went on a radio station and said, no, Tommy is not even close to making a decision. He hasn't formally announced anything. And this report is basically conjecture. And there's a few ways this story and how it could go, and how if the reporting is true. Well, Adam Schefter is usually dead on the money. So you have to take that in consideration. Adam Schefter is not normally wrong. But when it comes to big scoops lately, Schefter is not batting 1,000. Last year at the draft night, the draft is fun enough as it is. I love it. NFL draft, it's April 29th this year. April last year. We hear, well, the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers has demanded a trade from the Green Bay Packers. No longer going to play for the team. Well, he said this was happening that day. If he was talking about a trade, this wasn't that day. This happened 2 months prior. He broke it as breaking news. It was not breaking news. It was a story from 2 months prior that he was saying was present day breaking news. And throughout the whole offseason, every damn day in the summer, where not much to talk about in the NFL, every day, where's Aaron Rodgers going to go? Is he going to be traded? And the Mothership ran with it every day, and it was just ad nauseum, and it was boring, and it was so clear he wasn't going anywhere. Shows up to training camp, he plays his entire season for Green Bay, going to win his 4th straight Super Bowl when they announced the awards on Thursday night. So Schefter, I don't know why But clearly Rodgers leaked this to Schefter. I think clearly they're friends. And at the end of the day, he looks like a clown show because Rodgers is still there, and the whole offseason was a whole lot of nothing. Well, so with that being the biggest scoop he had, and now looking at this, I don't know who in Tom Brady's inner circle would leak that he's retiring. Because Brady likes to make his own announcements. When he went to Tampa, he broke it. It wasn't Schefter, it wasn't Jeff Darlington, Jay Glazer. Brady broke that news. And I'll say this. If Brady leaked it, hoping to get some fodder, and then he does not retire, and it's found out that he leaked this, it's childish from Brady. Retire. Play or retire. Now, if Schefter broke it with real facts, that's not on Brady. That's not his fault. He can't control what the media says. But there are instances where people use the media to their advantage. And I think Brady would do it. But I look at the situation. I can't condemn him yet. But if he's the one retiring and he needs more hoopla and it's more, oh, is he going to retire? Is he not? These stories are the worst ones because if I have to criticize Brady, because my mind immediately goes to Brett Favre. And Brett Favre was, oh, I'm going to play football. And then, oh, I got concussions and I don't want to play. And then he comes back and he never wants to lead the game. And after complaining about it and saying he's going to retire and he's never going to play for Green Bay, he was a walking, talking contradiction. You could say he still is to this day. But it was stupid. It was a non-story. It was a non-story. And he was a frustrating guy for me. And Tom Brady deserves what he wants when it comes to retirement. But don't drag it on. Okay, well, am I going to retire or am I not? Talk to Tampa Bay. If you want to come back, ask them who they're planning on signing in the offseason. Ask them what they're going to do with the draft. Just tell them it's done. Because Tom Brady's not going to come back to a team that might miss the playoffs. We know that. And I look at this team, maybe they'll have a great offseason. But are they going to be better than the Rams next season? They might lose OBJ. They might lose players. But I think the Rams, they're in the Super Bowl. They beat Tampa. So who knows? What's Green Bay going to look like with Rodgers? Who knows? I like Tampa. Brady just beats Rodgers in big games. Rodgers loses big games. Brady wins them. But the NFC is not going to be loaded. There's all the great. There's Russell Wilson leads Seattle. Even so, they haven't had a problem. Trey Lance era in San Francisco. This division is changing. Arizona, where are they? Dallas, Washington still doesn't look like they're going to be a great team. They're still searching for a quarterback. The Giants are in a rebuild with Daniel Jones and new coach, obviously new GM, new coach, and Brian Daboll. But for Tom Brady, you're, if not the greatest, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game of football. No doubt about it. But don't be a Brett Favre. Don't be one of those guys that, Big Ben did this for a long time. He got criticized for it. Either play or retire. It's simple. And maybe this is Schefter. And then I'll kill Schefter again because I don't mind doing it. But if this is a situation where Brady leaked it and he's like, oh, I want people to talk about this and it's going to be a big story. And, I'm going to use it as fuel because, people think I'm retiring. Then I'm going to come back and play. You're 44. If you want to play, play. If you don't, go hang out with Giselle and Cater. Or Qatar. I think it's Cater. I think it's how you pronounce it. But go live life. That's where I stand. Obviously, if he does retire, wait and see. We'll dive into it. We'll talk about his career and everything he's accomplished. But until then, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to have that conversation. Then, he's playing for the Miami Dolphins in next season. We'll see. The Las Vegas Raiders also made some news over the weekend. They hired They went full New England. They pulled the Houston Texans, where they hired Dave Ziegler, who was the director of player personnel in New England, as their new general manager. And they hired Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator for the past decade plus in New England, as their new head coach. And for McDaniels, this is his second crack as NFL head coach. He was the head coach in Denver in 2009, halfway through 2010. He was there during the Kyle Orton, Tim Tebow era, where Kyle Orton was struggling. He didn't want to start Tim Tebow. They ultimately fired him. Tebow came in. They got to the playoffs. Tebow threw that pass to Demaryius Thomas. And, McDaniels went back to New England, became the offensive coordinator, and he's been Bill Belichick's right-hand man forever. A few years back, he had accepted a job in Indianapolis. And then the day of he was going to sign his contract, Andrew Luck said that, he didn't want to play anymore. His body was breaking down. He didn't want to take the hits. And before he could sign the deal, McDaniels backed out and went back to the Patriots. Now, I got to be honest. I'm shocked he's getting this job, because that was a greasy move. It was not well received around football. But also, it is Vegas. And I thought they'd make a splash, because they host the Super Bowl next year. Mark Davis wants to win football games. But, this New England model rarely works. Hiring two guys from New England to do jobs, because they're not Belichick. It's just simple. There's, Belichick's assistants don't have a lot of success. And does McDaniels run great plays? Yes. Him and Brady worked so well together forever. He had a good season with Mac Jones, no doubt about it. And you look at it, well, Josh Allen in that division is going to have a new offensive coordinator for the first time in his career. Mac Jones had 1 year with McDaniels. It'll be a new system in New England for the first time in a long time. So they'll have to learn those plays, which will be difficult. Tua as well in Miami. So interesting developments there. It'll be Tua's third different offensive coordinator in his third season. But, McDaniels, I think, has the chops to be a head coach. But to me, is he just a great coordinator, or can he be a head coach? Can he delegate? And Ziegler, he's director of player personnel in New England. Nick Caserio is running the Houston Texans. He was in New England too. It's an organization that has success, but it's mostly Belichick. Patricia didn't have any. Bill O'Brien had limited success. Romeo Crennel, Charlie Weiss, the list goes on. These assistants don't. Brian Flores was one that was having some success, had never made the playoffs, but he was beating his former guy, his former head coach. But it rarely happens. And, we saw what Denver did when they hired Nathaniel Hackett, and now they're saying, well, maybe Aaron Rodgers will go to Denver. I still think if Aaron Rodgers is going to leave, there's an outside chance he ends up in Vegas. Obviously, Matt Wright threw this idea into my head. They're hosting the Super Bowl. McDaniels is an offensive mind. I think Denver certainly has better weapons. I think they have a good defense. But I see Vegas being very aggressive here, because I think they'll have an aggressive offseason. They will want to be successful. And maybe McDaniels will want to work with Derek Carr. And I think if Derek Carr is the worst quarterback in the division, you're in a really tough division, because he's a good quarterback. He got a team to the playoffs this year. But I'm interested. I think Vegas is one of the more interesting teams this offseason, because they had a horrible season when it comes to just, Henry Ruggs in jail. Arnett was arrested for gun possession. John Gruden gets fired after those emails are leaked. Rick Bisaccia was one of the only bright spots who just inserted himself as head coach. And now I see today he's interviewing in Jacksonville for the head coaching job, which good for him. But I'm starting to worry about this head coaching cycle. And you might have felt like you heard this conversation before, but it needs to be had, because it's a real one. Is there going to be a black coach that gets a job during this cycle? Because so far there hasn't been. All I've heard is that the Houston Texans want to hire Josh McCowan, the former journeyman backup quarterback as their head coach. He was coaching high school football last year. They really want to hire him, but it was reported by Pro Football Talk that they're worried about the optics of giving him the head coaching job and people thinking they're a clown show. Well, it's already a clown show that he's your top candidate. Maybe he'll turn out to be a great head coach, but coming from that organization just doesn't go real well. McDaniel's got the job in Vegas. Nathaniel Hackett, Matt Eberflus. Those are all white coaches so far. Now, there's still Miami, Houston. I'm missing some here off the top of my head. There was 9 vacancies. New Orleans, Jacksonville. So there are openings. There are job availability. However, it was reported at the start, well, Byron Leftwich is going to get the Jacksonville job. Well, they could have hired him 3 weeks ago. He's still out there. They're interviewing Bisaccia now. They've had a head coaching opening since week 15. They've been at this for a long time. They're interviewing everybody. Miami fired Brian Flores. I don't see Stephen Ross hiring another black coach. Sorry, but that's just the read I get. I don't know who they're going to hire. Minnesota, another opening. Maybe they'll hire Raheem Morris. DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, should be getting some looks because the way he played in this postseason, the way his defense is battled, he deserves a ton of credit for that. And it's worrisome to me. It's a problem because Byron Leftwich should get a crack. He should get a look. Why is Jim Caldwell not a coach? Why is he not a head coach? Why? He got Detroit to a 9-7 record and they fired him. Detroit, 9-7, winning record, competent. He did that. I have no problem with, Kevin O'Connell's the Rams OC. Maybe he'll get a job. Okay. He doesn't call plays. McVay does. Eric Bieniemy calls plays in Kansas City. Can't get a job. Hackett didn't call plays for Green Bay. He got a job. Why isn't Eric Bieniemy getting a job? I don't understand. It still baffles me that it's, you see on the helmets, end racism, all this, and it's junk. It's just trash. I love the game of football, but I covered it. It's important to talk about this issue because it's a real one where minorities don't get the respect that they deserve. They just don't. There's some really good coaches out there that could be getting jobs. And I look at Byron Leftwich, Leslie Frazier, Todd Bowles. Do any of these guys get a job? Brian Flores? Who's going to get all these? Maybe some black coaches will get them. I really hope they do. Because in Minnesota, they interviewed Harbaugh. I don't know if he'll want the Minnesota job. Obviously NFC would be in the NFC North. But he's got a great relationship with the Bears organization, so I'll be going against them. So that would be interesting. But I think he's going to stay at Michigan if his only job prospect is to coach the Vikings. But the rest of these jobs, who's going to fill them? And it's something I'm going to continue to talk about because I think it's important. What a weekend for football. Again, 6 straight games that ended with the last possession. That is, 1 possession game, 6 straight playoff games. Unbelievable. There's nothing like this sport. And I'll reiterate what I said last week. I feel bad for people who don't like sports, and in particular, people that don't like football, because you, unfortunately, don't know what you're missing and just how fantastic this has been and how just what a postseason. You could argue the best postseason ever. We still have a Super Bowl to talk about. But throughout this week, we're going to be doing some different things. Me and Seamus will be back. Both of us were busy last week, so we missed out on that. So tomorrow night, Seamus will be back. Wednesday, I'll be with Cole McDonald. We'll talk about some hockey news, go around the world of sports, kind of bounce around, talk about some things. So that's lined up late in the week. And hopefully some other guests throughout the week as well, talk about some interesting things around the world of sports. So lots happening here and to the point. Hope everybody's doing well out there. And back to level 2 here in New Brunswick. Got to enjoy that. But I'll keep you guys updated on the news around here as I start to progress towards where I want to be. And we'll talk this week. Obviously, this weekend is one of the more blasé sports weekends with the All-Star games. But later this week, you'll hear my great All-Star game rant. So that's always fun for me, and I'm sure very, very sound for the ears as well. But have a great night, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk then.